All my favorite songs are slow and sad. I don't know what's wrong with me.
Welcome to the Sad Song Queens podcast, where we dive deep into the songs that make us cry. I'm Laura Webb.
And I'm Lindsay Wolfington. So, Laura, you went on an exciting trip recently. I thought we could talk about that on today's Sync Up.
Yeah, and it's so exciting because, you know, the featured vocalist on this song that we're going to discuss today is Colombian. So I'm just back from Medellin, Colombia, and I had the most amazing trip. I had the fortunate honor to be invited to an event called Colombia Sync Market. And I got to start the trip in Santa Elena in the Andes, and then went to Medellin and went with a number of other music supervisors from around the world. And we got to learn all about the history of Colombian music and meet current artists and people in the sync space of like various label partners, bands, managers, see a bunch of live music, learn about the very vast, rich history of Colombian music. I'm so excited that today, when we talk to Adrian, that the band that is featured on Agonia is from Bogota. I had the most amazing time. We got to learn about cumbia, salsa, the Pacific coast of Colombia and their vast history. I learned how to dance cumbia and salsa. I had many dance lessons. I danced every day. We went to Comuna Traces, which was once in 1991 the most violent neighborhood, I think, in the world, if not Colombia and definitely Medellin. Like in 1991, that would have been unimaginable to be there, and that we were there, and the community and the community leaders there really credit music and culture and community as what revitalized the neighborhood. So it was so amazing to be a part and stand on a rooftop amongst Medellin and hear wonderful music. I am fully in love with the culture of Colombia, the coffee, the chocolate, the people. I'm putting it out there. I hope I get to do a Colombian project and use all this great music that I discovered while on this trip. And shout out to the Colombian Sync Market team that brought me there and took such good care of me. It was something I'll never forget. It feels very fitting that we're talking about Latin music today, just as I'm just back from the trip. Lindsay, I feel like I know, but what's your new update?
Well, I don't know if you can hear it in the space, hopefully not too much, but we're in our new house.
Yay!
So, yay! I'm in my new office. It has doors. That's very exciting. I can close myself off from the rest of the world and my children. So we're in the house, but, you know, lots of things are still arriving. So it doesn't quite feel like home yet, but little by little, and grateful to have the opportunity to like have a nice place to live and work and have a room that is my own office and all those things. So yeah,
that's exciting. All right, well, let's dive into what we're talking about today. Today we are talking with Adrian Quesada about his song Agonia featuring Monsieur Perrin. Grammy-winning producer Adrian Quesada is an adventurous musician known as the co-founder of the 7-time Grammy-nominated band Black Pumas. A lifelong Texan, Quesada's deep musical history has seen him producing and performing in multiple bands and various projects.
His most recent project, Boleros Psicodélicos 2, a sequel to 2022's acclaimed Boleros Psicodélicos, is a collaborative album recapturing the sound and feel of Latin ballads of the 60s and 70s, with features by Cuco, Angelica Garcia, Gepe, Monsieur Perrinet, and more. Quesada's prolific career has seen him collaborate with the likes of Prince, Los Lobos, and Wu-Tang Clan's GZA. Additionally, Quesada has also found a home in film and TV, working on numerous projects, and in 2025, he received an Academy Award nomination and a Guild of Music Supervisors Award for Best Original Song for Like a Bird from the A24 film Sing Sing. And he co-wrote that song with Abraham Alexander, who has also appeared on the podcast.
This is a first for the podcast, as we are talking about our first song that's not sung in English. Hopefully it will be the first of many, but it's an exciting foray that we are going to try. Also to argue that music is universal and that you feel things, even if maybe you don't know exactly what it's saying. I know a little bit of Spanish. Lindsay knows way more, but more I connected to the sound. So this is really exciting conversation that we'll have today with Adrian. So grab those tissues and let's get into it, because we all need a good cry.
And now, Agonia by Adrian Casada featuring Monsieur Perronet.
¿Es que acaso no ves que no hay nada que hacer? Que las hojas están cayendo, débiles, pálidas como este amor que se va muriendo. Por más que nos busquemos, por más que lo intentemos, se nos acabó el juego y ya tuvimos un segundo tiempo. Aunque sea difícil soltarte la mano, ha llegado el momento de decirte adiós. Agonía, noche y día, porque vas a dolerme toda la vida.
Enfin tu pleures. Laisse-moi partir. Oublie tout. Mon cœur ne t'appartient plus.
Para hacerte feliz no me vas a cambiar. Me cansé de vivir mintiendo. Y aunque te quiera, prefiero cortar de raíz lo que se va pudriendo. Por más que nos busquemos, por más que lo intentemos, se nos acabó el juego y ya tuvimos un segundo tiempo. Nuestra historia se acabó. Esta agonía.
So glad to have you on the podcast, Adrian.
Hey, thanks for having me.
This is such a fun one. Obviously a little bit different, but so passionate, which is what's so powerful about it. I don't know if we've told you the setup, but we basically kind of talk a little bit about what we feel in the song, what we think it's about, and then we want to know what you wrote it about or were intending the listener to feel when you created it. Laura, do you want to jump in with your theory?
Yeah. So I know a little bit of Spanish, but I need to, know more. So for me, especially with this one, is about the feeling that it conveys, which I think is so interesting about music. Like sometimes as other people connect with English songs and they don't know the words, but it's just like you're really connecting with the feelings and the swells and all that. So I think that's what first grabbed me. And Lindsay and I often well, we decide on what is the saddest song. And so we have like healthy debate about which one. And this one, just the drama really like captured us both. And later I'd be curious to hear what you think is your saddest one on the album. So yeah, so it was the longing, the agony. I could figure out agonia. Yeah, so I came up with all these images of like what was this great love, and I really pictured like if Fellini made films in Spanish, that this would be used in a Fellini film. Like, and it felt of that era too. And I keep going. I definitely am putting this in my sad playlist. I hope that I have a project that's worthy of this love that I feel is just like the most passionate ending. So that was kind of what I was thinking. And then when I went to look up the lyrics and looked at them in Spanish and English, with the translation, I prefer to cut off the root, what is rotting, or I'm sure it's way more eloquent in Spanish, but just that it was this great love, but for their sake, they also need to end it. So that was what I came up with.
It's funny. I mean, I went right to the lyrics, and I speak Spanish, but I was like, I need Google Translate for this one, especially since it's like poetry, right? So it's obviously a breakup song, but what I thought was really interesting was in chorus 1, she says, "You're going to hurt me all my life." And then chorus 2, she says, "You're going to hurt all your life." And so what I really thought was fun about this is the agony being together? It sounds like their love is so passionate, it's a little bit torturous. Or is the agony parting and breaking up? That was kind of my interpretation of it. And I loved like the imagery of a dying relationship. The leaves are falling, weak and pale like our love, like burn, like ouch, that's not how you'd want your lover to define things. But Adrian, I mean, it's my understanding that you wrote and produced the bones of this track and then brought on Messer Pirone to do the lyrics and record the vocals. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's correct. The song was written. What was added when I worked with them was the vocals. We kind of rearranged a little bit of it and then added the strings for just the extra drama, which I kind of wrestled with that until the last minute. Sometimes like strings that dramatic to me, as beautiful as they are, it's kind of like cheating. It's just like shooting fish in a barrel to make you cry. It's like, yeah. I remember when Beck did that Sea Change album and there's the first song had those strings and I loved it, but I remember my friend hated it and he was like, "Oh, those strings." He's like, "It's like when you break up and you just eat ice cream for like 2 weeks." He's like, so anyways, the strings were like, we recorded them, but I kind of fought until the end. But my co-producer, Alex Goose, actually funny that you mentioned Fellini because his dog is named Fellini.
No
and he's a big Fellini fan. And he was just like, we have to have the strings. And I'm like, it's too obvious. Like, it's too much. And he's like, let's go there. And he actually also was like, it's kind of like a Serge Gainsbourg song. So
totally. Oh, yes.
The strings were being pulled in and out until the minute we turned it in. I was like, no strings. And then, Monsieur Pirone is a group from Colombia named Catalina, and Santiago Catalina is the vocalist, and she wrote the lyric. I think Santiago, her partner in the band, may have helped with some of the words. And then he did the string arrangement as well.
Oh, it's so beautiful. Well, that makes sense because Lindsay and I, as music supervisors, we always love strings. So that must be where our heart really connected with that.
I do too. I really love strings. Sometimes I'm just like, is it just too easy?
Well, to that, we sometimes discuss like what makes a song sad, and sometimes like it is that like string line, or sometimes it's like just the piano and strings and the simplicity of these two like such emotional instruments. I mean, Fellini makes perfect sense. My interpretation was like, this could be a Bond theme. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like it's that epic. Mm-hmm. I was wondering the like dramatic pause at the end of the song where you leave, it like kind of stops and then she can say agonia for the last time. Like, was that before or after they brought in the vocals?
That was already there, and we just made it even more dramatic after the vocals.
Awesome.
So we just just overdid it on some of those things just for effect and for fun. When I first got together with them in Mexico City and we wrote the song, she was actually not feeling well. She had just had food poisoning, so she was in like
a different type of agony.
Yeah, exactly. For real. Maybe that's the agony. There it is. Thank y'all for having me on the podcast.
Yeah,
We'll see y'all
we're
next time.
done. Yeah.
No, but she started writing the lyrics, but actually finished them when I wasn't there because they ended up having to go back and re-record. She was just not feeling well that day. But yeah, we kind of exaggerated some of those moments for sure.
But like, I feel like you're saying that almost like apologetically, but I think that's like the beauty of the song. Like, how often do you get to go like balls to the wall drama, you know?
A lot on this album. So I did it a lot on this album. Yeah, it was fun, but they just brought like the just perfect, they just complemented the music perfectly. And when the string arrangement, Santiago, who wrote the string arrangement, I kind of had a sound in mind and I played him a song, but I didn't want him to copy it or like I didn't want to reference it too much. So I played him like 5 seconds of it. It stopped and was like, okay, just take the essence of that. And he was writing it the next morning on his computer, on his laptop in the Uber when they picked me up, like literally writing a string arrangement. And we had a string quartet come in and record that whole thing. He's a musical genius. So and he just captured the essence perfectly too.
Was this sort of the subject matter, or you kind of let them run wild, like more zooming out for volume 1 and 2 of these albums of the Boleros project? Were you with each song kind of approaching like, I would like this song to be about this, or how do you kind of specifically Agonia, I guess, like what was the thought process?
I mean, most people on these 2 albums are kind of writing in that direction anyways. That's just kind of the nature of the music. But I definitely don't really tell them what a concept is. The only thing that has happened a few times is sometimes my working title to the song as an instrumental will influence what they write, and they'll kind of run from there, which happened on a few, but not on this one. She completely wrote it, and it was just perfect. It was super fun to when I finally got the vocals back to piece it all together, and it's just incredible lyrics and her performance as well.
Oh my God, her voice, it sounds like she is from the 40s, the 50s,
Mm-hmm.
It feels so authentic, and what a performance. How did you come to learn of Monsieur Perrone?
I had been familiar with their music for a while now. They've actually played in Austin quite a few times. I remember they were here for South by Southwest a long time ago. And through somebody at my record label named Paul Dryden, who served kind of as an A&R on this album, he had recommended that I work with them on some stuff, and it turned out they were in Mexico City at a time that I was going to be down there. So we connected and worked on some music for a couple of days there.
That's so cool. I just got back from Colombia. I was in Medellin, Colombia.
Oh, cool.
And then Lindsay's like, oh, the band that's the lead vocalist is from Bogota. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so crazy. But
cool.
I got to learn so much about the history down there, and it feels very synergistic. So that was very cool. And what deep culture in Colombia too of music, and this kind too.
So beautiful.
Oh, I love it.
I'm curious what the track you sent them sounded like if it didn't have any strings. I hear also like the weepy guitar in there. I don't know if that was always in there or added afterwards, but what were the bones of this track?
The bones of this track revolved more around a kind of harpsichord sounding piano. The original version of it revolved more around that. And then I am primarily a guitarist, and I kind of, at the time, I was feeling like I was relying too much on my overall just same bag of tricks, the strings and the way I play the guitar and everything. So I was really hesitant to add guitar to it. Santiago himself added this really cool acoustic nylon string guitar. And then at the end, I felt like it needed one more guitar. And like I said, I was really, I guess because this is volume 2 and I just didn't want to repeat volume 1. I was like, everything I was trying, I'm like, I feel like I already did that on volume 1. So I actually reached out to a friend named Eric Krasno, who is an incredible guitarist based in LA. He's done he's done all kinds of stuff, but everything from jazz to soul to, rock and roll, just a really, really insane guitarist. And I thought it would be cool to have somebody else's take on it. So some of the like kind of melodic guitar stuff is him as well. So, cashed in one of my producer chips and was like, I'm not playing on this. I'm just the producer. So I had Eric play on it, and it was cool because it was just a different approach to it, and kind of just weaved in Eric's stuff. Once I got the vocals, I kind of weaved him in and out of there.
Was she drawing from a great breakup or a song that she was inspired by?
I didn't ask her. Sometimes with the subject matter, like unless they want to talk about it, always ask. You just, sometimes I don't know if people really want me to know or not, but I don't know, to tell you the truth, whether that was a story. I do know that when we first got together and started writing, that was kind of already what she was writing, was Agonia. I remember that.
Mm-hmm. What do you think it's about? What's your theory?
I think it's about a breakup, obviously, but I love kind of some of what you said, Lindsay, about how like one verse says this and then the other verse says that, and I love songs like that where it's like it leaves it a little bit ambiguous, where it could go in two different directions with, I forget exactly what the line was. I can pull up the lyrics, but it was like,
you're gonna hurt me all my life and you're gonna hurt all your life, or
yeah. I like
ones.
moments like that where it's like just touches on more than one emotion. First it's like you're the victim and I'm hurt, and then it's like a little bit of anger back at. So I love songs that have things like that where it's not so black and white. There's a lot of gray area, because as there is in love and breakups and all that, it sounds like this did not sound like an easy breakup that she was talking about. So.
No, definitely not.
I realized I was just saying the English translation of the lyrics. I should let you say the Spanish version of those lyrics.
She says, "Noche día porque vas a dolerme toda la vida." You're gonna hurt me, and then it's agonía noche día porque vas a doler toda la. You're gonna hurt too. So it's like I'm hurt and you're hurt. Everybody's hurt. It's agony. That's why it's agonía.
So good.
Yeah.
So what was the first boleros you heard that really kind of set this project in motion?
So boleros, like traditional boleros, are a style of song that's been around for over 100 years, and it's a very like beautiful but really kind of acoustic, stripped down like sound. And it wasn't until the late 60s, early 70s that it was like electric. People were playing electric instruments and put the drum kit on it, and they started calling that baladas, which was sort of like a orchestrated pop version of what a bolero was. And I mean, I grew up hearing that traditional boleros, like, because I'm from a border town. I'm from, my family, half my family's from Mexico, half from the US, so I grew up hearing that. I honestly didn't really like show a lot of interest when I was young in at that music. I wanted to listen to what my friends were listening to, and it wasn't boleros. Wasn't until I got a little older, but the big like aha moment for me into this style, which is kind of like a psychedelic take on boleros, is it was over 20 years ago, almost 25 years ago. I was driving and there was a song by a band called Los Pasteles Verdes. I was listening there, so the AM station, I live in Austin, the AM station on Friday, and we have a great public radio station, KUTX, shout out KUTX, that I listen to all the time. But on Fridays at 5 p.m. on the AM Spanish station is such a vibe, like such a party. It's so awesome. It's like the weekend's kicking off. People are calling in, shouting out their girlfriends, shouting out their like ex-girlfriends that cheated on them. They're like having a party, calling out their neighbor. It was like, I used to always listen at 5 p.m. on Fridays to that station and just leave it in because it was so wild and just reminded me of home. And I was driving one day and that all Friday evening and had it on, and they played a song by Los Pasteles Verdes called Esclavo y Amo. And I heard that song and I'd never heard anything like that. I literally pulled over off the road, not even exaggerating, and waited. That was when like cell phones had just come out, so I had like a big cell phone, and I waited until they announced their phone number, and I called and was like, "What is this? I've never heard this. This is the craziest thing." And that was the song that I mean, I covered that one on the first album. That's the song that for me just like was everything. It just checked all the boxes. It sounded like it could be a Wu-Tang Clan song. It sounded like you were crying, but it sounded like somebody had given you mushrooms before you started crying. It was like everything I loved all in music at once. And it was super trippy, and it was funky, and it was intense, and like, that's probably the song I've heard the most in the last like 25 years.
Oh, wow.
And it was actually a cover of it was a traditional bolero originally. And it's been covered in a million different styles, but this particular version from the early 70s, to me, it sounds like a soul song, like an American soul song. And it also just sounds like a psychedelic song. And that to me was the thing that I could trace it to that moment where I just became obsessed with this stuff.
That's so cool. I miss those days of like just the radio and you're like, what is this? And then I presume you just did a deep dive into like finding more of it as music lovers, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that's pre-Shazam days, now it's easy to, I mean, I'm at like every restaurant over conversations, like in mid-conversation, putting my phone up everywhere all the time now.
Thank you.
Yes.
Welcome. We are the same people.
Yeah.
I used to go on dates and be like, I'm sorry, hold on, I need to identify this
Yeah.
song. Okay.
Oh, it happens to me all the time mid conversations, and I just like zone out of what people are saying and just start trying to find the song, and I also have to apologize. But so yeah, the next day I went and drove around trying to find some Pasteles Verdes music, and I found a greatest hits CD at just like a little local, like regional mom and pop store. Now it's a lot easier to find that. Now that stuff is on streaming. For a long time, a lot of that music was not even on streaming. And then I've also just become a big vinyl collector of it. So I probably have 5 different versions of that song now on vinyl.
Oh, wow.
And every different pressing. And I've become, a big collector of that stuff. But back then it was to find something. Yeah, you'd have to like wait and call and see what it was.
While I was in Colombia last week, we got to go to the Discos Fuentos office.
Oh, wow.
And we were like, can we please go into your like vaults and like just crate dive? And also we went to the radio station, the Salsa. It's like 100.9, I think. And they were showing us, they just were talking. I'm like, can you please repeat that? And I just made this long list of all the things I want to just dive into more because they gave us just a taste. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait.
I'm curious about the bolero. Is it because I was working on a scene for one of my shows. They went to Mexico and they wanted them to do like a slow dance at like the hotel they were staying at or whatever. And I think what we ended up using was a bolero. I was finding that those kind of songs were worked better. So I was thinking it's a slow song, but really is it more defined by like the time code and the drama of it? Do you know?
I think they are generally slower tempo songs.
Okay.
A lot of it is the kind of song structure, the lyrical content. For the most part, most boleros have something to do with love, and heartbreak. Not every single one, but the majority of them do, and they are generally like slower songs.
Our faves.
What do you think is the saddest one on volume 1 or volume 2? Or maybe one from each?
Well, this one's pretty amazing. But on volume 2, there's another cover. I covered Los Pasteles Verdes again, just because every time I do this, I'm going to have to pay tribute to them. There's a song called Hoy Que Llueve, and is also by Pasteles Verdes. And it's just like today that it's crying. I mean, I'm sorry, it's crying. It's today, it's raining, and it's just bringing like all the nostalgia of me missing you. And I don't know where you are or where you've gone, and whether you're ever going to come back. And it's like, today as it's raining, I'm like hiding amongst the people. My tears are running like a waterfall from my broken heart. Like, it's just so, and every lyric starts with Hoy Que Llueve, so it keeps reminding you that it's raining. And it's like, now it's pouring down rain and all this
and
stuff is happening.
And your tears are, right.
Yeah, so, and then the tears, and that one to me, whenever we play it live and I'm like listening to the words, I'm like, I keep like picturing somebody walking, and everywhere they're going, it's raining.
Just the rain cloud following them.
Yeah, so that one stands out to me.
Oh yeah, my honorable mention was No Temere.
Yeah, that one's incredible too. That's an original. That was written by a singer from Cuba. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. So, which one do you think on volume 1 was your saddest?
On volume 1, I would have to probably say I would go with Esclavo y Amo, with the cover of that song. No sé qué tienen tus ojos, no sé qué tu boca que domina mis antojos y mi sangre vuelve loca. Like, I'm like a slave to your love and you're my master. And it's like, it describes every little bit. Like, I don't know what's in your eyes, I don't know what's in your lips or something, but you're the master of my universe. It's so intense. It's amazing. Yeah, that's one thing with this stuff, is like there is a little bit of poetry that gets lost when you go from Spanish to English.
Yeah.
I was talked to the record label about trying an English one, and we did record one in English. We may drop it at some point.
Oh, cool.
But I just felt like, I don't know, there's a poetry to the Spanish language, especially with this kind of music, that it just it's really hard to translate and keep some of that poetry.
Yeah, I feel like when you translate it to English, it becomes Britney Spears' "I'm a Slave for You." So yeah, it's
something like that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just not quite the right. Yeah. Have you heard from any of the members alive from the do you know if they've heard it?
So Los Pasteles Verdes, the guy who runs their record label, the son of the guy who ran that record label, I am in touch with for sure. And, he's loved the music. There is one other band that was a big influence on this called Los Angeles Negros. And they were originally from Chile, but they were based in Mexico. So a lot of people actually associate them with Mexico because they moved there, but they're originally Chilean. and they were also probably the second biggest influence on all this music. Their original vocalist we're in touch on Instagram, and he's always sending me like the sweetest messages. It's funny because when the first single came out, I saw a DM from him, and I was scared that it was going to be some like cease and desist, like stop copying my music, and he was just like, thank you for keeping the sound alive. I'm loving your music.
Aww.
And every time I put out anything on Instagram now, he DMs me, and we trade messages. And at some point I want to get down and work with him.
That would be amazing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So approaching volume 2, what did you just feel like you had so many more songs you wanted to get out there from volume 1? Like you were just saying, like, I need more. Like, do you feel like this is the end or more? Or are we going to get a volume 3?
No, with the drama, I have to do a trilogy. So
good.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's with this kind, something that has this much drama, you have to make a trilogy. It was partly that I had more I wanted to say and more things that I wanted to do. The other thing was that the first one was done during the pandemic, so it was all done remotely.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I mean, I love it. I'm super proud of it, but it was all done like really at the height of quarantine when people really were not in the same room. So it was all done via email. And I really wanted the opportunity to make one where I work with people more intimately and in person and have the album have a different feeling like that.
Are you currently in the works on volume 3?
Not super actively, but little by little putting the energy out for demos and stuff. I mean, we just finished a little like 2-week tour, and I'm just a bit swamped since I've been back. So not quite yet like really moving forward, but I am slowly percolating on ideas. I can kind of hear it in my head, but it's a ways away.
So when you go on tour, how do you decide? Is it kind of like who's around in that city who can come by, or how does this work? Since there's so many vocalists and artists that contributed.
Yeah, logistics are hard with this. With the U.S. dates that we just did, which was just like, the LA area, New York area, Austin, and a few things in between, was really kind of seeing who's already on the West Coast, who's on the East Coast, and then mostly, just who's in the U.S. Unfortunately, it's really tricky, not only because of people's schedules, but it's just also really tricky for people to get visas and stuff right now. So,
right.
A lot of the collaborators are in, there's a handful in Mexico, there's a handful in, in Colombia or in Cuba. Well, Daime is not always in Cuba, but it was just, it presented a lot of challenges to try to bring everybody up from, Latin America. So stuck with mostly people in the U.S. and Ile, who's also U.S., but Puerto Rico. So just kind of on whoever was on the coasts and then whoever was available and try. It's a lot of work to pull it off.
Will you be doing South America and Latin America leg of this tour?
That's the idea for sure. At some point, definitely talking about Mexico seems to be the most realistic option for going down there and doing some shows. So we'll see what happens.
We met briefly at the Guild of Music Supervisor Awards, and obviously you were also nominated for an Oscar. How was writing for film, and do you want to do more of it?
Yeah, that's always been a dream of mine for sure. And I've wanted to do like scoring more on the scoring side for sure for a long time. And I've scored a few documentaries and, indie like feature films, but this opportunity for Sing Sing came up to write a song for the last scene and the only song that's in the movie. So it's actually like the only other voice that comes out besides the actors. So it was literally the only song. And it was incredible. There was so much like serendipitous magic around that it just felt like it was meant to be. And obviously it was, it was like when Abe and I got on board, they had no distribution. They had no, it wasn't like, hey, here's an A24 backed film that has Oscar buzz.
Right.
It was just via a mutual friend who was like, hey, there's this director in Austin who wants to meet and talk to you about a song. I had lunch with him, Greg Cuidar, and luckily he's in my town, so we had lunch, and it was still kind of a scrappy film with a really unique business concept too, that he had for like the model of ownership where everybody has a part of the film. Like it was there was so much about it that I really liked, but when I saw the trailer, I had a meeting with him, which was great, and he told me all about it. And when I saw the trailer, I just couldn't stop watching it, and I just couldn't stop crying. So I texted Abraham and was like, I have this idea, and I sent him the trailer, and he loved it as well. And we didn't really have a lot of time. There wasn't a lot of resources. There was just like, we just really believed in this film, and I didn't know if anybody was ever going to hear it, but we wanted to be part of it. And we didn't really have a ton of time, and Abe and I were actually never able to be in the same room due to schedules.
Oh, wow.
Like, he had to go into a studio at 3 a.m. somewhere because that was his only window to send me stuff. I had to, and then by the time Greg and Monique, one of the producers, came to my studio to hear the song, I was editing it until like the second they sat down behind me, just like sweating bullets because I didn't know if it was going to come together. And when I hit spacebar, I just kind of like closed my eyes and looked up, and it like all, yeah, I literally, and it all just synced up like magic, where I was like, whoa, this was meant to be. You know, it was one of those moments, like, so there was something special about the whole thing.
When we had Abraham, we had him on several months ago, and I asked him, I said, did you know about the paperwork that you fly like a bird? And he goes, no, I had no idea, which is just so crazy that you guys really just like, you got the essence of it, and as songwriters
so we actually never saw the film until after the fact, because we only had that scene, so we didn't see a lot of the imagery of the birds and a lot of that stuff. We had no idea. And when we showed that screening, everybody was asking us like, oh, so y'all were inspired by this. That's what I'm telling you, there was so much magic to it. We were like, we literally hadn't, we saw the movie like 2 months later, but not before we wrote the song. It was just like,
it was meant to be.
I love that you also came to the table to be part of the project. You know, it is hard, you know, as a music supervisor or even as a director or producer, to get people to believe in your film without knowing. Like, every time we send a clearance out there, like, who's the producer? What's distribution? Blah, 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 blah. And we're usually like, we know who's producing it, but we don't know where it's going to go. But you have to be like, you know, it's a worthwhile movie, like, stories matter. You know, it's just really cool that you got on board not knowing what it was going to become at all. And look at how it paid off.
And your performance at the Guild Awards was wonderful. And
oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
You seem so collaborative, like bringing in all these different bands for this album, you know, bringing in Abraham Alexander on Like a Bird. And then you're in, like, you know, obviously Black Pumas, but like 4 other bands, and working with, you know, you worked with Prince and Los Lobos and all this stuff. Is that just your nature, or tell us a little bit about being involved in so many different projects?
Yeah. At some point I was in a few bands. At this point I'm really was just, you know, Pumas the last couple of years, but I think my name is still out there in a few bands involved in at some point. I just love to learn from other people. I always just feel like I actually do work by myself quite a bit. I'm an only child, so I have sisters that, you know, later on in life came into my life, but not for the most part, for most of my youth and playing guitar and music and everything. I was an only child, so I can really be by myself working for a long time. But at some point, I always feel like when somebody else walks in the room that I really respect, like, it elevates what I'm doing too. And I feel like it's really fun to be around other people, learn from other people. There's that, you know, and then also because I don't sing, I have to, you know, for these Boleros albums, I really have to be able to find these amazing singers that want to be a part of it and stuff like that. So it's a little bit out of necessity, but mostly out of I just really enjoy it. I think nowadays everybody's so that's a whole other conversation about the industry, the music industry now, and everybody really being so insular and really holding on to their stuff tight, because it's like resource guarding now that dogs do or something. It's like the money is so tight and the royalties are so little and everything, that everybody's like, you don't want that many writers on the songs unless you're, you know, in the Taylor Swift, Beyonce world. As an independent artist, you like want to hold on to as much of your rights as possible and have your name out there, and everybody's so focused on their like social media metrics and all that dumb stuff. But like a lot of my favorite eras of music were like when John Coltrane and Miles Davis would get in the studio and make an album together, and it didn't affect that Miles Davis was still making incredible albums. When Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings got together and made a record, they did it because it was fun. It sold some copies, and then they moved on, and Willie went and kept making Willie albums. Waylon kept making. Roberta Flack and Donny Hathaway made an album together, and I listened to as much of that as I do to each of their own individual catalogs. So I like that era of when people were collaborating, and not to say that it wasn't about commerce. I'm sure they had to get those contracts right and people were wanting their money, but like, I feel like some of that is a little bit lost in today's musical landscape, where it's like everybody's so like tight on their stuff, and it's like, well, what are their social media numbers and everything? And it's like, man, people used to like just get together for a couple of days and make a record for fun, and so I love that spirit. That's my favorite, era of music, when people were doing things like that freely.
Right, or only collaborating because, oh wow, I'll get the BTS or whoever audience,
exactly.
and instead of like, no, this is what my heart wants, this is what I'm feeling, I'm inspired by them. Yeah, so talk to us a little bit. I mean, because we're on the supervision side, but we are in the music industry, but we're kind of, the stepchild. So talk to us about like the landscape of independent music and how that all kind of works out, because we always find that the music business side a little fascinating.
Yeah. No, on one hand, was great about the internet and the streaming and everything is that like it kind of equalizes a lot of people in the playing field, and now you can not have to always rely on a major label or a label and just kind of get your stuff out directly. But then the flip side of that is that it's like so saturated now, and also to cut through the noise nowadays. Like my friend who's a musician here in Austin that I really looked up to, and he was signed to a major label in the 90s and everything. And one thing he was saying like a while back was like, back then, if you got the cover of Spin or Rolling Stone, you sat there for a month on the newsstand, and you had people's attention for an entire month while people were walking by and buying the magazine. And now it's like, if you're on the whatever music publication posts about you on their Instagram, it's there for like 3 seconds, and then they scroll down and it's just lost. And it's like really hard to cut through the noise now is the flip side of it. So it's like you really, really have to, I don't know what the hell you have to do. You have to have people that know what to do, because it's really frustrating sometimes, but I'm lucky that I have like a manager and great management team and a great label and people that I really trust that think about this more than I do, because I want to spend most of my time working on music,
right?
And not how to beat the algorithm on Instagram
or
like,
get on the playlist and this.
The playlist stuff. There's a little bit of creativity to me in like sometimes with the visuals and a little bit of Instagram and stuff like that. But like the playlist thing and like doing that, I literally would rather like play with Legos. Like that's not for me.
Yes. Let's go play with Legos.
And I'm happy that like I have a record label they're really good at that, and I appreciate that. I recognize that that's a big part of the game and everything. So it's not like knocking it. It's just that's not for me.
Right. And shout out ATO. We love working with them.
Shout out ATO. Big time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Another shout out is Mary Kate Melnick, who works on the film, TV, synchronization part. Like, she sent me your song I work on Lincoln Lawyer, and we were able to use a Black Puma song, Ain't No Love in the City. And I don't know if you know, but that was actually, the original was used in the movies of Lincoln Lawyer. So that was really fun.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, way to go, Mary Kate. Thanks for sending that over. So that was a really fun use, and we really loved using it in the show. So thank you for saying yes.
Yeah, thank you.
And Eric's voice, the first time that you heard it, were you just like, oh my God. I mean, it's so, you hear it and it's just got so much texture and nuance. Like, what a voice.
Absolutely. Just next level angel-like voice, and so so beautiful and everything, but so raw too. It's like it really was. When I met him, it was just chills instantly when we started recording music.
Talk to us about 2020, Biden's inauguration night. Black Pumas performed Colors for a special night.
So it was, I'll give you like a little bit of behind the curtain like honesty about it. So originally that was also during the pandemic, and that was still like pretty intense time with, if you were walking into a building, you had to get checked, get a COVID test, and then you had to get checked 48 hours before. So that was done remotely. So we did that. We taped it in Austin at a music venue, had to like turn in a COVID, remember there was the rapid test and then the other test. We had to do the other one 48 hours before
or something.
And then walk in, get tested. As we're walking in, one of our backup singers tests positive, which was just stressful already. We walk in and we're just playing to an empty room and filming it. And it was a little bit anticlimactic, to be totally honest. It was just like, because that's what those live streams and stuff were back then, was just, you just played and there was nobody there and you hope that somebody was watching on YouTube. But we taped it and, just felt like going to work, taping it, doing the thing. When I watched it at home on TV, it like brought me to tears. The moment to see it all put together and see that like I didn't grasp the moment when we taped it, because we literally played to an empty room and there was just camera crews and then we left. But I watched the inauguration, obviously, and when I watched it on TV and the way it was just all put together, to realize that I was a part of that moment in history, even though it was just a weird time because it was quarantine. It wasn't like anything that they did. It was just how it was. But when I watched it, I was just like, I could not believe. It was like, wow, this was something that, my music has brought me here to this point where I'm a part of history here today. And it was a really, really epic thing to see on TV. Well, not epic to tape it, but it was incredible to be a part of it.
That's so funny because I don't even remember that. Like I just remember it cutting. I don't, we didn't realize it was Zoom or whatever, but it just really felt like the song that captured the whole night, honestly. So.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
That's awesome. You were kind of part of the magic of TV there.
I know, exactly. Yeah.
Did you do a lot of Zoom showcases during the pandemic?
Yeah, I did. We did. I mean, one thing was I remember like the first week, like when things just started getting canceled, which I think it was like in March, right? Was that 2020? March.
Yep, March.
I remember it took a while for the music industry and musicians to really be like, figure out what's happening, figure out how to adapt. And like, everybody was just throwing their hands up like 6 months later. I remember like our manager, like that month was like, nothing's going to be the same. We have to pivot. We have to figure out these live streams. We have to do whatever. And I mean, like on like day one, he was like, this is how it's going to be. And this is what we're going to do. At the time we were touring a lot and I was starting to get a little burnt out on touring. I just have been doing it for a long time and then, have a family at home. And then we started doing all these live streams to nobody. And then, to people on YouTube, but nobody in the room.
Yeah.
And it was great because we were like able to, keep the lights on and get some money and monetize those a little bit. But when we played our first show back to people, to a real audience, I was like, I had got chills and was like, I'm never going to take this for granted again, the opportunity to do this, because I don't want to do any more live streams, first of all, but also like what an incredible opportunity to have people pay to come see you play your songs and affect them like that. So it really, when we came out of it and started, the world started back up again, it really gave me a newfound like love and appreciation for the opportunity to be a touring musician and a performing musician.
It's true. Like there is just this communal thing that you cannot take away versus watching it. And it's great to watch it online, YouTube footage and all that. But there is just something about being in the room where it happened. Can't take that away.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I remember when everybody was doing, and we were all like supporting all our friends' live streams, but somebody made a joke one time. They're like, oh, my laptop is like open mic night now. Like during the pandemic, like you'd open up and one of your friends was always doing a live stream somewhere and we had to like donate money and it was just like open mic night at the house all the time,
right,
with people's live streams.
Are you all working on another album for Black Pumas?
At the moment, no. We did a whole touring cycle off the last album, which we just wrapped up at the end of last year. And at the moment, no. Eric's working on some of his own music, and I've got this that just came out.
So this is a sad song podcast. What are some of your favorite sad songs?
The first one that usually comes to mind is Roberta Flack's version of "Hey, That's No Way to Say Goodbye," which is a Leonard Cohen song. But I actually first discovered the Roberta Flack version, and that's just one of my favorite albums, if not my favorite album of all time, for Roberta Flack's First Take. And it was, well over 20 years ago that I heard that version. I didn't find out until later that it was a Leonard Cohen version, and the Leonard Cohen version is amazing for sure. I just have more of a connection to the Roberta Flack version, but I'm a big fan of interpretation, like back then, like not always like yearning for the way things used to be or anything like that. But nowadays there's so much, people kind of almost look down on like, if you don't write your own songs and you're, writing cover songs, but like, Roberta Flack, Killing Me Softly it's a Roberta Flack song, but she didn't write it. Does anybody remember the name of the person who wrote it? Like, nothing against them. I'm just saying she made it her own. She made it her song. I could think of a million examples. And so she made that she made it her own song. It's the way she delivers it, the way she sings it. The lyrics are obviously, it's a Leonard Cohen song, so the lyrics are incredible, but just so beautiful and so much like beautiful imagery. When we walk to the corner, our steps will always rhyme. Like just so much beautiful imagery in that. And just that concept of, hey, that's no way to say goodbye. Just that title alone evokes so much, and the way she plays it, the way she plays the piano, that one is one that tugs at me.
I'm with you. I mean, like, I, for the longest time, didn't know Jeff Buckley Hallelujah was written by Leonard Cohen because he made it his. And, like, I do listen to the Leonard Cohen version, but it just doesn't grab me the way that the Jeff Buckley version did.
Just watch the Jeff Buckley document. Have you all seen the Jeff Buckley documentary? I just saw it a few days ago.
I'm dying to.
There's a theater here that screened it, and we went and saw it earlier this week. And speaking of sad songs, tears will be coming down. You could actually hear the whole theater sniffling at the end of it.
Oh,
it was so intense. Yeah.
That I also think it's so interesting. I think we didn't realize that it was a Leonard Cohen song at first, and neither did you. I think that's like a normal way for young people to discover music is sometimes like either the first version they heard or the version of their generation who covered it. And I do think, you know, especially covers come up a lot in music supervision. And sometimes you're like, oh my God, like, really, are we doing this again? But sometimes it's just so effective. And if it's like a really good way to introduce a young audience to a classic song by just having it performed by somebody who is theirs, or, you know, we worked on a film where Morgan Harper-Jones covered I Want to Dance with Somebody in a totally stripped down sad way, like took this pop jam and made it totally like, oh my God, actually these lyrics are extremely sad. Like, but I was just dancing to it in my living room and had no such thoughts 5 minutes ago. You know, I just think it's a really powerful tool. And we talk a lot about what we think makes a song sad. And I feel like you just gave an answer that was performance, but I'd also be curious if you have other thoughts on what makes a song sad.
Performance for sure. You know, obviously lyrics, but similar to, you know, we were talking about my song Agonia and this song. I'm actually not the most lyrical person myself. I tend to like go for an emotion that I feel and that I hear, and I'll pick out certain words and sometimes just the concept at first before I really have to go in and like figure out or read the lyrics. But sometimes just something like a song title or a concept evokes so much, you know, and that again, when the title is called Hey, That's No Way to Say Goodbye, you know that's going to probably be a pretty sad song. So
I know I tend to even like, you know, when we get the blasts and you're like, ooh, what's that? Ooh. Or like, I always want to cry or something. You're like, I want to hear about that. So what are some of your other sad songs?
Well, speaking of you know, not being super lyrical, I wanted to actually have an instrumental song. 'Cause I think that one of my favorite albums that I put on when I'm sad or I want to feel sad or I want to come out of being sad or I don't know if it reminds me just of a particular moment in my life or if it's what the album evokes, but this is jazz record by a sax player named Oliver Nelson, and he did an album called The Blues and the Abstract Truth. When I was in college, I had some friends that really turned me on to a lot of jazz, so I got way into jazz back then and still am a jazz fan now, but there's a song called Stolen Moments. It's the first song on that album, The Blues and the Abstract Truth. And that's the album I always put on, besides Roberta Flack's First Take. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it was like the moment. You know, sometimes you have an attachment to something because of when you first heard it or when you know, whatever that reminds you of. And it may have been that, like when I was listening to it originally, or I discovered it originally. But that song to me is so intense and just beautiful. And it's sort of melancholy for sure, and then you know, it's a jazz song, so they all go into solos, and it sort of has like a blues type form, but it's I don't know, it's beautiful. It features a sax player / flautist, clarinetist named Eric Dolphy, who did some stuff with John Coltrane, but was kind of more of an avant-garde musician and did just kind of more like out there stuff. But he plays on that, and in the middle of it just has a solo that's just on top of this like beautiful melancholy song that's really out there, like kind of intense thing that he's doing, and it just adds to the feeling of it. I don't know how to explain it. I listen to a lot of instrumental music, and I think that song is the one that I think of as a jazz song that I put on a lot that is sad to me for whatever reason.
Yeah, we've talked about that we should have some, there's certain songs that you don't have to have lyrics, right? And that we want to have some future guests on with featuring instrumental songs too. But agreed, because there's sometimes words don't have to say it, right?
There's also something in the space that an instrumental song can give you, I think, especially if you are having like a moment where I want to cry or whatever.
Do you put on sad music to listen to? Because, some people don't do that. But I mean, when do you put it on?
Every once in a while, I feel like you need to allow yourself, like, whether it's a good cry or a good sad mopey session. Sometimes, like, we're so on the go, or at least I'm so on the go all the time, and have to, like, maintain composure in so many situations that sometimes I'm like, all right, screw this, I'm gonna pull out a bottle of wine and put on Oliver Nelson Blues and the Abstract Truth, and if I get sad, that's so be it. But I feel like we need to allow ourselves that. It's a good, like, sad moment or a good cry or something, I think is really healthy for us. It's a good release.
Agreed.
Yeah. Are you a crier?
Oh yeah, I was crying like 2 minutes into that Jeff Buckley documentary, and with my wife and all her friends, I was just trying to, like, act like I wasn't, just like adjusting my glasses every 2 minutes.
I feel like in a theater, it's dark, so you're almost like, it's a really good place to cry because, like, no one has to notice. Where I was at a wedding this weekend, and I, like, always cry at weddings, and, like, the vows were but I was like, why did I even put on makeup? And it's, like, bright out, so people can definitely see that I'm crying. Like that, I felt like, okay, hold it together, but I couldn't hold it together. But in a theater, I feel like you can fully let go.
I hold back in public theaters because sometimes I'm like, oh man, if I was at home, I'd be like sobbing, right? Like if I watched the Jeff Buckley verses, like I'm like, oh, I'm holding it back a little bit in my throat, like because
you don't want to make too much noise.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah. Well, my eyes start itching when tears get, so then I have to, like, constantly be adjusting my glasses and stuff. So.
Oh my God. I remember when my sister and I went and saw Marley and Me, she was, like, audibly, like, sobbing out loud at the theater, and people were like, whoa. So do you want to tell us one more?
I'm going to say, I had a list of a bunch here. If we're going to do one more, I'm going to have to go with one of the most obvious. I just think Careless Whisper by George Michael.
Yes.
It's such an insane song.
I'm with you.
The imagery, like the lyrics in that, and I watched the George Michael documentary a couple years back, and he actually went and cut one at Muscle Shoals, where they did a lot of Southern soul stuff in Alabama, where that music was, they were cutting there was just this really, like, tough soul sounding stuff. I didn't realize that he originally cut the song at a version that was at Muscle Shoals, which on paper sounds like that would be the version I would like. I was like, I finished watching the movie, looked for it, and I found it on YouTube. It was like, this is the raw, like, soul tough version that I heard, and I was like, nah, it's not the same as the sexy saxophone version. Like, that one just has all the magic. That sax is so over the
right?
top.
But sometimes you
it's
gotta
so
pull
over
out
the top.
the sax.
Yeah. But some of the imagery in that song, like the guilty feet have no rhythm, and some of that stuff is like, there's some lines in there that you're like, dang, that's sad, powerful stuff. And then like I said, the sax is so over the top that it's like the strings in my song. It's just like poking you, like, cry now,
Just put it Salt Bay, like, just do it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's so, like, pop perfection in the best way, because sometimes, sad songs aren't the most, like, produced pop songs, but that one, I'm so with you on that.
There's a song I found. I just found this last year on vinyl. I think I found it in the UK, but it's a really obscure song that the group was called Cinnamon Soulettes. It is on Spotify. You can find it out there, but it was and I actually pulled this up just so I could get the story right, but I just found it on a 7-inch vinyl, and it's this ballad. It's just kind of a love song. It's called I'll Show You How, but it's really haunting. It's just a piano and vocals, and it's this beautiful love song. I don't even know the exact lyrics, but I know it is kind of lovey song, but it's so, like, haunting and just feels really sad. I don't know if it's like the intimacy of it just being piano and vocals, but I didn't know much about it. I just found it at a record store, put it on, and was like, oh, that's really good. And it's so beautiful. I heard it so much on tour last year, and I actually looked it up, and it was so it literally says here, our next release is, so it was discovered. It was a Private Press record, which I don't know if y'all are familiar with. Like, Private Press means, like, no, but so Private Press were like, if somebody made a record, and it's a lot of them are like kind of 60s, late 60s, early 70s made their own album and just pressed it 1,000 copies themselves.
Kind of being like
and
self-published, right?
Yeah, like old self that never was discovered, never made it or anything.
Wow.
So this was some sort of like private press record that they found through a producer in Seattle from the 70s. The estate was lost entirely in a flood and nobody could find anything about it. So they don't know much about it other than that the group was credited as Cinnamon Soulettes and the mysterious songwriter L. Levy. We don't know the name. We don't know anything. So it makes the whole thing, maybe I already knew the story after when I heard it, but I was like, that makes it even more haunting. But it's, Cinnamon Soulettes, I'll show you how, is a song that I just discovered it last year, but it's so beautiful and just sad song is a good way to put it. The whole story about it all makes it maybe just a little bit intense and sad.
Yeah, it makes me think like, what else are we missing, right? If like you connect to
sure.
this, and we'll link it. We all the songs that we talk about, we link it in our Spotify playlist. So listeners, hopefully,
cool. Okay.
You'll get to discover this too, because I always love this and get to discover things that I didn't know. Where's your favorite place to shop for vinyl, or do you just check in at all different locations when you're touring?
Yeah, it just depends. It's kind of all over the world. Some of my favorite places have been like in France and in Belgium was really cool because of big African populations in France and in Belgium. You get a lot of really cool old African records, and they also have rare versions of like picture sleeve versions of American soul records. So you get these kind of like exclusive records that I might already have here, but they had like a different cover over there. And so you kind of find these cool like exclusive things. And I like shopping in Mexico City a lot.
Oh, I bet.
We have great record stores in Austin too, so just everywhere. Yeah.
How big is the collection? Is it over there to the left or the right?
No, this is my the B room in my studio. My studio's next door. My collection, there is some records back there, but a couple thousand, few thousand.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I learned a lot about Bolero, so that was really exciting, and I want to dive even further into this genre. So thank you for introducing this to a lot of us and sitting down with us. So
Thanks, Adrian.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us today on Sad Song Queens, because you always need a good cry. Please leave us a comment or rating and follow us wherever you find podcasts. We will link these songs in our show page as well as in our Spotify playlist. Huge thanks to Adrian Casada, Alex Goose, Catalina Garcia, Santiago Prieto, Mary-Kate Melnick, Paul Dryden, Brendan O'Connell, and Doug Jackson.
our friends at 10 Atoms, ATO Records, Sony Music Publishing, Universal Music Publishing Group, and Me Gusta Music. Special production thanks to Stephanie Gangle, Eugenia Coe, Jordan Lindsley, Rob Carter, and our producer, Emily Carther. Our theme song is All My Favorite Songs by Weezer, and our outro music is by Wyatt Rouse.
Hi, it's Lindsay from the Sad Song Queens podcast. You may have heard us allude to Rob or thank Rob Seals in the Songwriting School of Los Angeles at the end of our podcast. He has been so kind to let us record in his studio, and the Songwriting School is an awesome place. If you want to learn how to songwrite, record, or even information how to release or sync your song, there's a class for that.
The Songwriting School of Los Angeles is devoted to the artistry and industry of songs. To learn more, go to thesongwritingschool.com, where you can learn more or enroll in classes.